The afternoon sun pressed flat against the yard of Holt Defense Logistics. Cole Rennick stepped down from a rust-bitten Ford F-250, a sealed crate in his hands. His daughter Ellie sat in the passenger seat, a tin box of Riverstones on her knee. Vanessa Holt stopped her investor tour when she saw the truck. "I didn't know the junkyard opened a branch outside my company." The investors laughed. A guard pulled Ellie's backpack onto the gravel. The tin box tipped. Stones rolled across the concrete. Cole signed the manifest. He did not look up. Then the diesel came down Highway 21. 8 marine vehicles turned hard into the lot and braked as one. A woman had just laughed at a man she thought she could read, and in 10 minutes, everything she believed she owned would begin to come apart. 3 weeks earlier, Cole drove Ellie to school in the gray light before sunrise. He did not speak much on these mornings. Neither did she. She kicked her sneakers against the floor mat in a small, steady rhythm and watched the marshes slide past the window. He dropped her at the curb at 7:15, watched her until she reached the door, then drove the 8 minutes to Reggie Pell's machine shop on the edge of town. Reggie had 3 AN, PRC, 152 handhelds on the bench, tactical units, newer than the equipment that usually came through his shop. He said a contractor in the city needed them recalibrated by Friday. Good money, cash on delivery. Cole asked who the contractor was. Reggie shrugged. He never asked. The money was clean and the work was real. $11,000 still sat on Sarah's old hospital ledger. Cole took the job. Back at his own shop behind the house, he opened the first unit on the bench and stopped. The VHF chips on the daughter board carried serial numbers that had been sanded and restamped. The marks were faint. They were real. He pulled up the DoD destruction database on a 5-year-old laptop and ran the numbers through twice. Each chip had been logged as destroyed in 2019 at a maintenance depot outside Fort Hood. The paper trail closed 2 years before these handhelds had been built. He sat with that for a long time. Reporting up the chain Reggie used would mean losing the work and changing nothing. The contractor would simply find another shop. He thought about it the way he thought about most things without moving. He made 3 decisions in a row. He would do the calibration he was paid for. He would photograph every serial number with his phone. He would wait for a channel that mattered. The shop door opened at 3:40. Ellie came in still wearing her backpack and sat on the stool next to him. She did not ask what he was doing. She took a length of green embroidery thread from her pocket and began to braid. He watched her hands for a moment before going back to the bench. Her fingers were faster than they had been a month ago. That night Cole pulled a framed photograph from the top of the kitchen shelf and turned it over. Sarah, 28 years old, standing beside him in his service blues outside the Marine Corps Communications Electronics School. Her hair was shorter than he remembered. She was laughing at something he had just said, and he could no longer recall what it had been. He set the frame back face down on the shelf. The next morning he delivered the 3 units to Reggie. Reggie counted out the cash and then mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that the same client had placed an order for 47 more. Next week, Cole took the job. He needed to see where the units were going. Driving home, he glanced once at the photograph he had not put back upright. Then he watched the road. Inside Holt Defense, Vanessa Holt stood at the head of the conference room and ran through the Paris Island deck for the 4th time that morning. 240 tactical radio assemblies, $38 million, a contract her father had chased for 6 years and never closed. She had been CEO for 14 months. Drake Marston walked her board through the supply chain. Costs down 23% against forecast. Margins healthier than any quarter under her father. The room applauded politely. Vanessa watched the numbers and tried to feel what the room felt. She caught Maya Reyes in the corridor on the way out. Maya was 29. And had been a QA engineer at Holt for 11 months. She handed Vanessa a folder without explanation. 3 sample units, all from the new supplier line, all showing harmonic noise above Mills' steady 810 thresholds. Drake appeared at Vanessa's shoulder before the corridor cleared. He took the folder, read it for 16 seconds, and explained calibration drift in the sample lot. Older inventory. The production line from the new supplier would be clean. He spoke without heat. The way a man speaks when he has explained the same thing many times to many people. Maya did not argue. Vanessa watched her not argue. She asked Drake for the new supplier's documentation. He sent it within the hour. Formosa Precision, Limited, Taiwan registered. DoD vendor license, current. A clean signature page. That night, Vanessa pulled up the company on a public database in her own apartment. Formosa Precision had been incorporated 11 months ago. The Taipei address resolved to a virtual office on the 7th floor of a serviced building. There was no factory she could verify from a screen. There were no employees listed in the public registry beyond a holding director and an attorney. She sent her assistant a request to schedule a site visit. 3 weeks out, she poured a glass of wine she did not drink and stood at her kitchen window for a long time, watching the lights along the Cooper River. Her father had built this company on handshakes with people he had known for 30 years. She knew almost no one in the new supplier file. That had been Drake's territory from the beginning. He had been her father's right hand for 9 years. He was steady. He was thorough. He had wept at her father's funeral. Drake learned about the calendar entry from her assistant the next morning. He closed his office door, dialed a number on a separate phone, and asked for the Paris Island shipment to be moved up 2 weeks. Before she boarded the plane, he looked at himself in the small mirror inside his desk drawer when the call ended, and he did not feel anything he could name. 19 days remained on a clock Vanessa did not yet know had been reset. 3 weeks after Reggie's first job, Cole drove the 47 recalibrated units to Holt Defense himself. Reggie's delivery truck had broken down that morning, and Cole had said yes faster than he needed to. He wanted to see the gate. The investor tour was just emerging from the boardroom when his truck rolled in. Drake had finished his presentation on the new supplier 10 minutes earlier. The investors had been told the supply chain was the strongest under any CEO in the company's history. Vanessa laughed at the truck. The line about the junkyard hung in the air longer than it should have. An investor picked it up. Everyone delivers at Holt. The guard moved on cue too quickly, Cole noted, for it to have been the guard's own idea. He cataloged that without expression. The backpack came out. The tin box hit the concrete. Ellie was already on her knees gathering stones when one of the guards reached for the box itself and pushed it sideways with the back of his hand. Cole set his hand on the guard's shoulder. He did not press. He did not speak. The guard went still and stayed still, and a small confusion passed across his face that he would think about for several days afterward. Cole crouched and helped Ellie collect the stones. She handed him a flat green one and he turned it once in his palm before placing it in her box. He stood, signed the receipt, and lifted her back into the cab without hurrying. Drake had recognized Cole the moment the truck pulled in. He spoke quickly to Vanessa, something about handling the delivery driver himself so she could continue with the investors. He tried to angle her body away from the gate. It was too late. The Marine convoy was not coincidence. The Paris Island acceptance review had been on the DoD calendar for 6 weeks. 8 vehicles, 2 MTVRs, 6 Humvees, escorted by a liaison officer named Major Daniel Hollis. Hollis saw the rusted F-250 pulling out of the lot before he saw Vanessa Holt. He signaled the column to brake. He stepped down from the lead vehicle, walked 4 paces toward the gate, and rendered a slow rifle salute that he had not given to a civilian in 5 years. 7 Marines behind him saluted because their officer had, and because something in his posture told them to. Vanessa stood without moving. The investor with the coffee cup did not notice it tilting in his hand. Drake's face went the color of paper. 2 people watched the same man at the same moment, and one of them was stunned, and one of them was afraid, and the difference between them was about to matter. Cole returned the salute with a short nod and drove out of the lot. Ellie waved at the Marines through the rear window. None of them waved back. They were still standing at attention. Vanessa watched the F-250 disappear past the gatehouse. The investors had gone quiet. The one with the coffee cup finally noticed it tilting and set it on the railing beside him with a small apologetic sound. Drake had taken half a step backward without realizing it. She turned to him. The question forming on her face was not yet a question, but he saw it coming and looked at his shoes. She did not ask it in front of the investors. She filed it instead, the way her father had filed things, and led the tour back toward the conference room with a smile she did not feel. Inside the boardroom, the acceptance review began on schedule. Hollis shook Vanessa's hand without warmth. He asked, almost in passing, whether the driver in the F-250 had been a regular delivery. Vanessa said she did not know him. Hollis said nothing more about it. He requested a random unit pull from the staged shipment. Maya was called in to run the bench test. She set the analyzer for the second unit and ran the sweep. The noise floor spiked at the 30 to 88 MHz band. She moved to the third. Clean. She moved to the fourth. Not clean. Drake explained instrument error. Hollis wrote in his notebook with a pencil that he sharpened by hand. He did not look up while Drake spoke. At the end of the meeting, he placed his card on the table in front of Vanessa. He had written one line on the back in the same pencil. Call before signing anything. He left without taking coffee. That evening, Vanessa drove to Beaufort herself. She did not phone the number on the card yet. She told herself she was going for the air. The marshlight at low tide had been one of her father's favorite things, and she had not driven this road since his funeral. Reggie's shop was easy to find. He hesitated when she asked who had calibrated the most recent lot. He gave her Cole's name and an address on a county road outside town. He did not ask why she wanted it. She parked 50 meters short of the house with her headlights off and her engine ticking down. Through the lit window of the shop behind the carport, she watched a man teach a small girl how to finish a friendship bracelet knot. The girl's hands worked slowly. The man's hands waited. There was a framed certificate on the wall behind them. The seal looked official. She could not read the words from where she sat. She did not get out of the car. She turned around and drove back to Charleston, and somewhere on Highway 17 she realized she had been gripping the steering wheel hard enough that her knuckles had gone white. Cole had seen her headlights. He knew which car. He went inside the house and sent Major Hollis a single text message. Saw the convoy. Something's wrong with their supply line. Give me 72 hours. Hollis replied in 3 minutes. NCIS already watching. Don't move alone. The next morning, Drake reassigned Maya to documentation review and revoked her bench access. She did not object in his office. She walked to her desk, copied 14 measurement files to a personal drive in 7 minutes, and submitted a written acknowledgement of the new role before lunch. 3 people were moving toward the same point on a map, and only Drake knew one of their names. He believed that was enough. Vanessa, at her desk, opened Hollis's card and looked at the line on the back for the 3rd time that day. She did not call. She made a list of every contract Drake had signed in 18 months and asked her assistant to print the originals from the archive. The stack arrived at 6 in the evening. It was taller than she had expected. She did not start reading. She poured a cup of coffee that had gone cold and stood by the window of her office, watching the cargo cranes along the river move under the work lights. Her father had left her this company on a Tuesday morning with no warning, and she had been running it ever since, the way a person runs a relay, leg head down, eyes on the next baton. She had not asked once, in 14 months, whether the runner ahead of her had been clean. She sat down and began to read. On day 5 after the convoy, Drake accelerated the Paris Island shipment to within 72 hours. He did not inform Vanessa. He told the logistics manager it was a customer accommodation. The logistics manager did not ask which customer. Maya, locked out of the bench, walked the warehouse floor with a tablet and a documentation request that no one questioned. She pulled 6 random units from the staged crates and ran a portable noise sweep in the back hallway behind a stack of pallets. The sweep took 14 minutes. 5 of the 6 failed. Drake found out by mid-afternoon. Security walked her to the gate with a banker's box and a termination letter, citing breach of restricted area protocols. She did not argue. She did not cry. She walked to her car and sat in the driver's seat for 2 minutes before turning the key. She did not call Vanessa. She did not trust the line. She called Reggie from a gas station 15 minutes outside Beaufort and asked for the name of the technician who had calibrated the original lot. Reggie hesitated, then told her where to find Cole. She knocked on his door at 8 that evening. Ellie answered the door, looked at her for a moment, then called for her father without taking her eyes off her face. Maya laid it out at the kitchen table. 47 of the 240 units were running recycled chips. 23 of the 47 were assigned to the medevac frequency block, 225 to 400 megahertz. The radios a corpsman would key to call a helicopter for a wounded Marine. The radios that did not get to fail. Cole listened without speaking. Then he opened his laptop and brought up the photographs he had taken 3 weeks earlier. He matched her list against his serials. Every one of the 47 appeared on both. The numbers matched without a single gap. He called Hollis at 9:14. They're shipping early. I need NCIS at the dock before 4. Hollis answered that federal mobilization required 18 hours minimum. Cole said he would try to hold it. Ellie came into the shop in her pajamas. She climbed into his chair, reached into her tin box, and put a single green stone in his palm. The one shaped like an almond, the color, she had decided 2 years ago, of her mother's eyes. She did not say what it was for. He knew. He put it in the chest pocket of his work shirt and zipped the pocket closed. He drove her to Edith's house at the end of the road. Edith did not ask why. She had been a Navy wife for 31 years before her husband died. She recognized the look on Cole's face. Drake heard about Maya leaving town within the hour. He also heard from a contact in Beaufort that a number associated with a county road outside town had dialed Major Hollis 3 times in the last 24 hours. He did not have a name. He had a guess. He moved the shipment to 2 in the morning. Then he opened the bottom drawer of his desk and made a second call to a number he kept written on the inside of a matchbook from a hotel in Atlantic City. He asked a man he had never met in person to solve a problem in Beaufort. The man asked for an address. Drake gave him one. Vanessa, working late in her office 2 floors above, did not know any of this. She had just finished reading the 7th contract on her list. The signatures were Drake's. The supplier names were beginning to follow a pattern she did not like. Cole had 6 hours. Hollis had 18. Drake had 4. And somewhere on Interstate 26, a black SUV was already heading south. At 1:20 in the morning, Cole pulled up to Edith's porch with Ellie asleep against the passenger door. He carried her inside, set her down on the spare bed, and kissed her hair once. He told Edith to lock the storm door and not to open it for anyone. She nodded. He stepped back onto the porch. A black SUV sat 30 meters down the road with its lights off and its engine idle. He did not stop. He drove past it at normal speed, took the next turn at the same speed, and dialed the Beaufort sheriff from the highway. He gave them Edith's address and a description of the vehicle. Deputies arrived within 7 minutes. The SUV was gone by then. Edith and Ellie were safe. At 2:05 he reached the gate of Holt Defense. The night guard was the same man who had pushed the tin box. He stopped the truck and demanded credentials with the same flat voice he had used in the afternoon. Cole handed him a faxed authorization, signed by Major Hollis at 1:50, and a Department of Defense identification number the guard had to read twice. He made a phone call with his hand shaking. He opened the gate without looking at Cole's face. At 1:47, Vanessa had answered a call from Major Hollis at her kitchen counter. He told her the COO was shipping early and a calibration technician was on the way to stop it. He said she should be there too. She did not ask how he knew. She put on a coat over her sleep shirt and drove the 12 miles in 9 minutes. She walked into the loading bay and found Cole standing in the open space between a running freight truck and the warehouse door. Drake stood on the other side, his arms folded, his suit jacket buttoned. Drake smiled, the kind of smile a man uses when he is the only one in the room who knows the joke. "Chief," he said. "Long time." Vanessa heard the word chief and understood she had been wrong about something larger than a truck. Cole set his laptop on the tailgate. He opened 3 files, the photographs of the 47 serial numbers, Maya's measurement archive, and a third document Hollis had sent him 40 minutes earlier, a flow map tracing payments from Formosa Precision through 2 intermediary accounts to a numbered shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. He spoke once, only to Vanessa. 23 of these go to medevac frequencies. If they ship, the first person to use one might be calling for a stretcher. Vanessa looked at Drake. He opened his mouth. She raised one hand. "Don't," she turned to the night guard. "Stop the truck. Seal the warehouse. Call Major Hollis." The guard did all 3 things in that order, and did not look at Drake while he did them. Drake did not argue. He smiled wider, almost amused, and looked at Vanessa as if she had just paid for something she did not yet understand. "You just made a very expensive decision, Miss Holt," he said. "Your father made a different one in 2022. He turned and walked toward the office without being told to. The night guard followed him at a distance Vanessa was not sure she had ordered. Cole closed the laptop. He did not look at Vanessa. He looked at the freight truck. The driver had killed the engine. Steam was rising from the hood into the cold air. Somewhere outside the warehouse, the first NCIS vehicle was pulling onto the access road. Vanessa stood very still in the middle of the bay. She did not yet know what to do with her hands. She had not slept. The coat she had pulled on over her sleep shirt was buttoned wrong. Cole noticed. He did not say anything. He turned slightly so that his shoulder blocked the baylight from her face and made a small motion toward the side door, and she followed him through it into the cool, empty air outside. She breathed in once, deeply, and then again. Major Hollis arrived at 6:30 with 2 NCIS investigators in plain clothes. The shipment was sealed and tagged. Drake was placed in a separate room under voluntary cooperation, pending charges. He did not ask for a lawyer yet. The senior investigator noted this in his pad. In the small conference room off the loading bay, Hollis poured coffee for Vanessa from the staff machine. He called Cole by a different name, Chief Rennick. Vanessa asked what that meant. Hollis answered in the short, flat cadence Marines use for things that still hurt. Chief Warrant Officer 4, United States Marine Corps. Tactical Communications Maintenance, co-author of MILSTD 188-220D Annex F. The inspection protocol Holt Defense had spent the last 18 months trying to fail quietly. 2 silver stars. The first, Hollis said, was for Helmand in 2017. A company of 140 Marines was cut off for 9 days. Their communications node went dark on the 3rd day. Chief Rennick was lowered from a helicopter through active fire and rebuilt the node by hand in 3 hours and 40 minutes. He kept the line up until extraction. Hollis had been 4 meters from him for most of it. He remembered. The second citation, Hollis added, was sealed. Vanessa set her coffee down without drinking from it. She did not say she was sorry. She said, "What do I need to do now?" Hollis said, "Talk to him." She found Cole in the corridor near the vending machine. He was holding a paper cup of water he had not drunk from. She asked why he had not spoken when she laughed at his truck. Cole looked at her for a moment before answering. "My daughter was in the cab. She didn't need to remember her father arguing with a stranger. She needed to remember her father did the right thing quietly." Vanessa did not answer right away. She thought of her father at the kitchen table when she was 12, telling her that any man who needed to be loud about what he was had usually run out of other ways to prove it. Hollis came back with a thin file and gave it to her. It was not about Cole. It was about Drake. $3.8 million in unsecured gambling debt to an organization operating out of Atlantic City. 18 months of payments traced through Formosa Precision. The math closed, but the file went further than that. In April of 2022, Drake had brought a similar supplier proposal to Richard Holt, Vanessa's father. Richard had refused it and ordered an internal review of Drake's accounts. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday night, Richard Holt died of a heart attack in his office. The medical report was clean. There had never been a criminal inquiry, but the email Richard had drafted that night, requesting Human Resources open a personnel file on Drake, was deleted from the company server 48 hours after his death. Vanessa read the page twice, then a third time. She asked Hollis the only question she could ask. "Did Drake kill my father?" Hollis said. "There is no evidence of that, but there is a timeline. NCIS will look again." She sat with the file open on her lap for a long time. The room had grown bright while she read. Hollis had refilled her coffee twice without saying anything. She closed the file and set it on the table. Cole was still standing near the vending machine in the corridor. Through the open door, she could see the side of his face. He was not looking at her. He was looking at the rectangle of sky in the window, over the loading bay. The way a man looks at weather he has not finished thinking about yet. She wanted to ask him a second question. She did not yet have the right words for it. 2 members of her own board had signed off on the supplier program beside Drake. She was about to find out whether they had known the rest. 4 days later, Vanessa called an emergency session of the board. The local press had already printed a column on the Holt Defense Internal Review. 2 senior directors, Gerald Marsh, 63, an old friend of her father's, and Trent Wexler, 58, had spent the previous afternoon in her office urging her to settle quietly. Blame Drake. Renegotiate Paris Island. Protect the share price. Protect the family name. She listened to their proposal in full. She did not interrupt. Gerald believed he had persuaded her. He left smiling. Then she opened the meeting. She had asked Cole to attend as an independent technical consultant. "Maya, reinstated the previous morning, sat beside him. Major Hollis sat at the back of the room and did not speak. Cole wore a clean flannel shirt and no jacket. The green stone was in his chest pocket. Ellie was at school. Edith had taken her in the morning and would pick her up at 3. Gerald spoke first, before Vanessa had finished her opening. "You brought a contractor into our boardroom." Vanessa did not answer him. She turned the projector on. The first slide was Cole's redacted service record. The second was the NCIS preliminary brief. The third was a photograph of a recycled VHF chip under microscope. The sanded serial visible at 40 times magnification. The fourth slide stopped the room. It was a server access log. Gerald Marsh and Trent Wexler had each opened Richard Holt's compliance email, the one requesting a file on Drake 3 days before that email was deleted. The timestamps were on screen. The IP addresses matched their company workstations. Each had spent more than 4 minutes on the page. Long enough to read it, long enough to understand it. Gerald started to speak. "That doesn't prove." Cole spoke for the first time in the room. He did not raise his voice. He did not stand. "I'm the one who wrote the inspection protocol you just tried to bypass. I'm standing in this room because my daughter doesn't need to know whose name her father was angry at. She only needs to know her father stopped this." "Sit down." Gerald sat. No one filled the silence for nearly 10 seconds. The projector fan was the only sound in the room. Maya stood and walked the board through the technical implications in 3 minutes. 23 medevac units. The frequencies a corpsman would use to call for evacuation. The probable consequences of those units failing under load in field conditions. She did not raise her voice either. She used words that did not need to be louder than they were. Lorraine Pace, 59, who had served on the board since Richard's first year, took her glasses off and wiped her eyes with the side of her thumb. Vanessa called the vote. Suspension of Gerald Marsh and Trent Wexler from the board, pending federal review. The motion passed 7-2. The 2 dissenting votes were the suspended directors themselves. NCIS escorted them out through the service corridor. The press, already gathered at the front entrance, had been told nothing about who would be leaving by which door. Vanessa stayed in the boardroom after everyone else had gone. Cole remained near the back. He did not move toward her. He waited. She walked the length of the table once, and then sat down at the end, opposite her usual chair. The room felt different from this angle. She could see her father's portrait above the credenza for the first time, without the projector screen blocking half of it. He had not looked at her like that in life. The painter had given him the eyes of a man waiting for an answer. She breathed out slowly. Her phone buzzed on the conference table. A text from a number she did not recognize. "Your COO is not the only one who lost something tonight. Check your home." She left the building at a walk that broke into a run by the elevator. Cole was already moving. He had read the screen over her shoulder. Hollis was on the phone to the Charleston field office before they reached the parking deck, and the field office was on the phone to SWAT before the elevator doors closed. The drive to her penthouse took 22 minutes. They went in 2 cars. Headlights staggered along the Cooper River. The door of her apartment was unlocked when they arrived. Drake stood in the center of the living room. He had been released on bond at 4 that afternoon. A small handgun rested in his hand, not raised, not lowered, pointed at nothing in particular. A single document lay on the coffee table beside a pen. He had not come to shoot anyone. He had come to make Vanessa sign a personal release in exchange for what he called the truth about her father. Cole stepped through the doorway first and moved Vanessa behind his shoulder with a hand on her elbow. Hollis remained on the landing, speaking quietly into his radio. SWAT had been dispatched the moment the text arrived. Their estimated time of arrival was 4 minutes. Drake raised the pistol toward Cole. "Step back, Chief. I have nothing left to lose. You have 22 years or 30, Cole said. "Putting that down is the difference between the two." Drake's mouth curled. He glanced past Cole at Vanessa. "Your daughter has a greenstone she gave you yesterday. I saw it on the gate camera. Cute kid." The room changed temperature. Cole did not move. His voice came out quieter than before, almost gentle. "Say her name again, and I will take that from you before the police get here." "You won't like which part." Drake heard for the first time in many years a man who was not threatening him, a man who was describing. Vanessa stepped forward, past Cole, and stopped within arm's reach of Drake. Her father had taught her to keep her hands visible in a negotiation. She kept them visible now, Both palms turned slightly upward. The truth about my father. Now. Or you walk out of here with 30. Drake looked at her for a long second. Then he set the USB drive on the table next to the document. Your father knew about me. He printed my termination letter the night he died. I didn't kill him. I was working 2 floors down when his assistant called for paramedics. By the time they reached him, I had already accessed his terminal. I deleted his email queue while they were still trying to start his heart. Vanessa's face did not move. That's not didn't kill him, she said. That's let him die alone with the truth in his hand. The SWAT team came through the door 8 seconds later. Drake set the pistol on the coffee table and raised both palms. The lead officer cuffed him without speaking. After he was gone, Vanessa loaded the USB into a laptop on her dining table. She read for 40 minutes without speaking. Cole stayed 3 steps back, near the window, watching the river lights. The drive contained the deleted email queue. It also contained a message Richard Holt had sent in April of 2022, routed through Major Hollis, addressed to a technical consultant Richard had never met in person. He had described a supplier discrepancy and asked for an opinion. The reply, sent 2 days later, was 4 sentences long. The last sentence read, "Get NCIS involved before you sign anything else." The reply was signed Cole Rennick. Vanessa read the name twice. She turned to face him. "You wrote to him. I didn't know it was your father," Cole said. "The message came to me through Hollis. The header only said CEO of a Beaufort logistics contractor. He listened to you. He died with the letter in his hand because of you. He died trying to do right," Cole said. "That isn't because of me. That's who he was." Vanessa sat down on the edge of a chair she had bought with her father's company card the week she was promoted. She cried in front of another person for the first time in 14 months. Cole stood 3 steps away. He did not move closer. He did not look away. 7 weeks later, the recognition ceremony at MCAS Beaufort was small by design. 40 folding chairs and a hangar swept clean for the occasion. The base commander spoke for 3 minutes. Major Hollis read the citation for the Department of the Navy Distinguished Civilian Service Award. Cole stood at parade rest while it was read. He did not wear a uniform. He wore a pressed shirt and pressed pants, and the same work boots he wore every other day. Ellie sat in the front row with her tin box in her lap. She watched her father the way she watched a slow tide. Edith sat beside her in a navy dress that had not been out of the closet in 4 years. Vanessa sat in the 4th row. She had told the public affairs officer she did not need to be acknowledged. The week before, she had announced the restructuring of Holt Defense Logistics and the creation of the Richard Holt Compliance Office, an independent technical verification group with veto authority over any outbound contract. Maya Reyes had accepted the directorship on a Monday morning. She had asked for a corner office with no door. After the ceremony, Vanessa found Cole in the gravel lot beside his truck. The F-250 had not been washed. Ellie was sitting on the hood, sorting stones by color in the afternoon light. Vanessa did not begin with an apology. "I was wrong about you," she said. "I was wrong about my father in the other direction. I was wrong about who in my company deserved my trust. I'm done being wrong about easy things." Cole nodded once. "You stopped being wrong the night you said don't to Drake. The rest was already work." She offered him a position as chief technical advisor to the compliance office. $340,000 a year, a corner office in Charleston, equity vesting over 4 years. Cole watched Ellie place a gray stone beside the green one in her box. "I'll consult," he said. "Per project, per call. No office." "I made a promise to her mother to be home for dinner." Vanessa nodded. 6 weeks of audit work on every contract Drake signed in 18 months. "I need you for that." "Tuesdays and Thursdays," he said. "Mornings only." She offered her hand. He took it. Her hand was cold. He did not comment. She walked back toward the hangar. Halfway there she turned and looked at the truck once more, and then continued. Cole climbed into the cab. Ellie buckled herself in and held the tin box on her lap with both hands. The truck started on the second turn of the key. On the drive back to Beaufort, Ellie watched the marsh grass move outside the window. The light was the kind her grandfather had loved. "Daddy," she said, "they clapped for you." "I know. Are you happy?" He looked at her in the rearview mirror. "I'm happy because you're eating dinner with me tonight." She opened the tin and took out the green stone he had returned to her that morning. She placed it back in its old spot. Then she took out a new gray one she had picked up in the hangar parking lot before the ceremony. "I named this one already," she said. "What did you name it?" The day Daddy didn't speak loud, Cole smiled. It was the second time he had smiled in many months. A marine transport vehicle came up behind them in the next lane. The driver was a young corporal who recognized the plate from the briefing his sergeant had given that morning. He lifted 2 fingers off the wheel in a brief salute as he passed. Cole lifted 2 fingers off his own wheel in answer. Ellie did not see it. She was already naming the next stone. Neither of them had been looking for a moment like this, and that was exactly why it found them.